Hey, thank you for joining us for another episode of Beyond the Table, where we start conversations here at this table, and hopefully you take them beyond this and begin to visit. And today I have a very special guest with us, a business owner, an entrepreneur, a risk taker, a friend, and just amazed at how he has built and established himself in our community, in our area, and done such a successful job in developing and growing a business even through difficult times. And so today I have Lucas McCrary with us. Lucas, thank you for being here, man.
Of course. Thanks for asking me to be here.
Oh, man. Well, first of all, just tell me kind of what your business is, what you do, and...
Gotcha. So I own a lawn and landscaping company. I started it in 2016 when I moved to the area, and we do commercial and some residential service.
Okay. Are you primarily now doing commercial services?
Yeah, so I have a subcontractor that takes care of residential properties, but as far as what's directly managed by me is commercial properties.
Okay. When you started, did you start just going commercial or
No.
just anything that needed to be done?
Knocked on every door, anybody that let me do anything for $1. So it was all residential up to the point where we were push mowing like 130 yards at one point.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. Wow. And so, well, man, how old were you when you started this business and kind of what did that look like? I know you said you were push mowing
Right.
130 yards and...
So after high school, I took a gap year and I went on mission trip for a year. In the time, my parents had moved away and from my hometown. And so they gave me a call. They said, hey, Lucas, you either go back to the Panhandle of Texas where you have no family and you have no money and no place to stay, or you can move to Houston. And so I moved down to Houston and, come from a big family. So it was like, yeah, my parents were supportive, but you got to take care of yourself, especially as a 18 at the time, 19-year-old man. And so they let me stay with them. And that started out where I was like, I got to do something to pay for college and pay for my vehicle gas, all these things. And so I immediately was supposed to start a business with my brother, a lawn business. He got a girlfriend in Florida. He took off, which worked out because they're married now. But it started out with, I bought like 2,000 flyers that said Lucas Lawn and Landscape. And I went through every neighborhood in town, hung a flyer, talked to anybody I could. 2 months of that every day.
Wow.
5 days a week, just putting out flyers. Put out all of them, all 2,000 before I got my first call. And it was just a little residential yard. And, I went, started, 2 or 3 months later, I had the whole street. And so it just kind of went like that.
That's awesome. I love the hustle, though, that, way too many times when people see someone later on in their business, they don't know the hustle that it took on the front end and the risk.
Oh, yeah.
On the front end to get here. Everybody wants the results without the hard work. I've said it before, the only time success comes before work is in the dictionary. And so what were some of those risks? What were some of those, you just said 2,000 flyers that you put out before you got your first yard.
Yeah. For me, some of the biggest risk is, for when I moved to this area, I knew no one. So, a lot of times when you start a business, you can depend on friends for being the first customer or family for, I can mow my grandma's yard and get some money and she can tell her friends. I knew no one.
Okay.
So it was being dropped in a community of, no, I want to be self-employed. I know that's what I'm supposed to do, but I don't have any upper hand. My parents don't even know anyone. I think they had gone to y'all's church for maybe a couple months at the time that I had come here, and they still were, trying to figure it out. So the biggest risk being starting with no community support. So I had to create my reputation from nothing. And so that was a big risk.
That's all. That is a huge risk. Do you find it different being, young versus someone that is a little older? How does that play in, or does it?
For me, I think being young plays to my advantage because at least people can especially I would say, the generation above me respects the hustle. They're like, okay, this kid's doing something. He's trying to do something. At least he's working. At least he's, pursuing something. So I think at the time it was beneficial for what I was doing that people saw me as someone that was young and trying to do something.
Yeah. How has it grown now? How long have you been doing it now, and how has it grown and developed?
So in June of next year, it'll be 9 years. So I guess we're about 8.5 years in now. It started me in a push mower, and then it got to where I think my parents had bought me a second push mower because they saw I was too busy, and then that meant now I employ my little brother and paid him way too little for way too much work. It took, doing this residential service until I, started cutting this guy's yard, and he ended up being the president of HOA, and he said, look, you buy the equipment, I'll get you your first commercial contract. He's like, put in your bid, but like we want you to do it because we've seen you take care of all these properties. And so I put in that bid. We were competitive. We got the bid, and from there it started my first commercial property. And then as the area grew rapidly, it was just recommendation after recommendation, and to the point where another risk we had to take was I said I'm no longer doing residential maintenance just because it was a big headache for one, but so we dropped about 130 customers at one time and took a huge pay cut. I mean, huge pay cut. But I needed to restructure our business because I couldn't support. At the time, it was just I wasn't able to manage 130 yards and commercial properties at the level they need to be cared for.
Right.
So it took a big risk and just slashed out residential completely.
Wow. And so did you, when it comes to lawn and landscaping, because I know you do the irrigation, you do the trees, you do the planting. It's not just going out and pushing a mower anymore. It's expanded and grown and developed. So what has been the process that you've used to educate yourself or to get knowledge?
Yeah, so the biggest thing I do is I trust other people and I look for partners because I'm not good at everything. So for like irrigation, I have a really good friend that is in the business that has already gone through school and is a licensed irrigator. So I bring him onto my team, and he's someone that we can call upon for any of our needs. And then the planting and things like that, it kind of happens organically. You learn, you watch videos, you call companies that have been in the business a lot longer, ask for advice. Call the old women that run the nurseries and say, hey, what about these trees? What are the environment they need to be in? Things like that. And so for me, it's been not necessarily just depending on what I know and saying, you know what, you're better at that than me, and reach out to them and hear what they have to say and go with it.
See, I think that's huge. I also think it's a strength of any entrepreneur that they understand and know. I don't have to know it all. I just need to know someone who knows some stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, if you depend on you for everything, then you ain't going to get very far.
Yeah, I've heard it said, I think John Maxwell says that you are a limited resource, so you need other people in your world.
100%.
So what are some mistakes you made along the way? And, do you wish you could have avoided them, or have you learned to internalize them and say, man, I wouldn't be where I'm at without them?
Yeah, it's kind of like we spoke just briefly before it happened, and you said, I wouldn't take them back because, it made it who you are today. And I agree with that, but some of them were a lot more painful than they had to be. I wrote a couple down just to remind myself. One of them being not to build a team under someone that's most qualified necessarily, but someone that's most loyal. Mm-hmm. I've found that if I can find someone that's loyal to me and the company and grow them into a leader, that's a lot of times way more productive and long-term way better for me and the business, because a lot of times people who view themselves as overqualified are too focused on the next instead of making the best where they're at.
Right.
And I hire people that are overqualified, and instead of growing the company and making the best where they're at, they're just moving on.
Looking for
which I understand, but at some point, I think you have to choose those people that want to stay and want to grow.
Right. That's good. I look at it 51% when I'm looking at someone to talk to or hire, 51% I gotta like them.
Right.
I have to have a good personality. I have to be able to relate with them. Because if I'm going to be in business with them and I'm going to work with them, I want to like the people I'm working with. 49% of skill set, and in both of those, it's all about character. Are they humble? Are they hungry? Are they smart? They want to grow. They want to develop. Do they come to the table not knowing it all?
Right.
That's huge for me as well. So whenever you get a commercial job, do you do the architecture stuff from the beginning? Do you the permitting process? What is it all that entail?
So typically when you have like a new building, for example, the Chick-fil-A that was built on the front property.
You have that property.
Right.
Okay.
We do. We installed all of the landscaping and irrigation, and we did gas lines there, all kinds of stuff. But what happens is the developer, the builder, they typically have an engineering firm handle all of the planning, including irrigation and landscape. And then they send you over the design, and you typically just change. We made plant changes for the area because, it's a lot of times a designer in California that thinks that we can just put all these different plants, But no, the engineering side and the architectural side is usually done for you. Now, there are cases where a building's already established and a city may want architectural plans or whatever, like League City, which is incredibly overkill. But then we find someone that is capable to do that and pay them to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't know if it was just a one-stop shop or how we were doing that. Because I do know on the League City property we had a lot of fun times and going back to the drawing board.
Yes. No, typically it's a one-stop shop, but there are certain cities that they want designs and they want specific plans on your private property, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And so, well, let me ask you this question. If you could give like 3 pieces of advice to a young entrepreneur, what would that be?
First of all, check with the people closest around you and ask them if you think it's a good idea. People that you trust. You don't want to just run with an idea necessarily that your closest people will think doesn't have a chance of making it, right? And then the other is if you have gone through that and you really think it's a good idea, don't worry about what people think or people. I think oftentimes people feel that others are looking at them waiting for them to fail. And for me, the truth is don't worry about them because they would never be brave enough to try.
Yeah.
So don't worry about the social risk. Do your best and hustle. I mean, it's not going to be easy. It's way easier to just go get a job. Yeah. So know that before you go in.
So looking now, almost 9 years in, what now is the rewards of the risk you took 8.5 years ago?
So still working on it. We've grown a lot, but it's one of those things that you grow and then it takes a while to bring up your margins again. But we've grown a lot in the last 3 years, and business has increased 2, 3, 4x over the years, and we have a good life. We live really well, and so I'm grateful for that. I'm never locked down to a schedule. It's freedom, really, for me. And some people are like, you don't want to do this, you don't want to grow bigger, you don't want to do that. And I always want to grow, but I want to grow organically because I enjoy having a peaceful, free life.
Yeah.
I don't like having to, let me sign up for vacation time or let me do this. So, right now I'm living in what I would call a sweet spot of owning my business because I'm here right now. And thankfully I have a good team that's working and taking care of things. So the biggest is freedom to live a life that's, I can be home with my wife, or once we have kids, I'm going to be able to be there for anything. Yeah. And so I enjoy that.
One of the things that impresses me, because I see you around town, I see you in the areas and different things. I see you at lunch, and you're always with your guys.
Yeah.
You're out, walking yards. I've seen you grab a weed eater.
Yeah, I will.
And
Absolutely.
on properties right there with you guys. And so one of the things that really has, from an outsider, and I'm not in it day to day with you, but just an outsider, you haven't gotten, you haven't taken on the attitude that I'm better or bigger than my
No.
people.
Absolutely not. If I'm available and I don't have anything to do, if it's gonna be like work or sit at home and play Xbox, I'm gonna go be with my guys. I'm gonna
Yeah.
support them. There's certain times in the winter where I'll not go in to make sure that they get more hours or different things like that. But for the most part, I say as long as I'm willing and able, my body's able, I'm gonna show up and work because I think my people appreciate that, and if they stay with me longer term, they're going to understand when I start phasing out that, hey, he worked. He knows how to work. So,
Well, I know I've seen you do it, and I've watched and I've observed, and I've never said anything to you about it, but I know I'm probably not the only one. So for me, it's impressive because a lot of
thank you.
guys get a business going, they're 2 to 3 years in, and they think, man, I can go do whatever I want to do now. And you never see them again really working on the business. It's like what I do. I can work for the organization or I can work on the organization. And right now I'm watching you kind of at times do both.
Right.
Because like you said, it's everything is you grow and then you catch up.
Right.
Whether it's margins, whether it's systems, whether it's new employees, whether it's organizational charts, whatever. You grow, you catch up. You grow, you catch up. And so it's in the growing where you're working, for, but it's in the catching up where you're working on. Have you found that to be true in your business?
I always tell Cameron, which I don't know if it makes sense to everybody, but I say, I can't be too busy to make money. And what that means for me is, I have to find a balance between, I want to work with the guys. I want to be there. I need to, protect the quality of the business and the character of who we are and what we do. But at the same time, I have to step back. I have to have meetings with an accountant, with my bookkeeper, making sure that invoices are coming in, making sure that new bids are going out. So I've been in situations where I've been so short on guys. I work 6 days a week, and we've missed 3 or 4 new bids opportunity, which at the time, I'm working so much that we couldn't take it on anyway. Right. But, you have to kind of dial it back and say, okay, this has to be done because in order for the business to be healthy and grow, somebody has to take care of the side that's outside of the physical work.
Right. So what's been some of the biggest challenges in finding employees? We were talking about that earlier. We're in a booming, thriving community, which is great. It has so many advantages to it. But the biggest disadvantage is I think almost every business I've been into lately has had a help wanted sign.
Right. Yeah. So I think it's because, and especially in the area we live in, there's you have a lot of dual income or single middle to high income families where, parents pay for their kids to have the things they want and need. And, here's some money to do this, here's some money to do that. And I think I see it as a problem because I don't think parents are giving their kids responsibility in a lot of ways. And so I think it's the people that would work for an industry like me, especially, it's usually like end of high school, summers, or, after high school, we get a lot of our, younger help. Yeah. And anymore, I don't think I've had after high school, like fresh out of high school workers or summer helpers from high school in probably 2-3 years.
Wow.
We depend on mostly Hispanic labor, Hispanic nationals, Mexican national labor, and we end up getting some guys that usually it's in our type of business, it's usually a rougher background that we get, and then we just try to make the best out of that and grow them into someone that can fit our team.
Absolutely, man.
People that need a second chance, at something. So,
well, I love that. I think it's amazing. I agree with you. I think the best thing a parent can give a child is responsibility.
Yeah.
Because responsibility is coming like a freight train sooner or later. And it's a matter, will you be prepared or will you not be prepared
Right.
for it? You know, when I went to college, when I went to Bible school, I had to work. I worked 3 jobs. And so I loaded trucks at night for UPS. I parked cars on weekends. And then a guy in the school has started a mowing business, and I would mow yards.
There you
You
go.
know, anything I could do to make $1 to pay for school, because
Right.
my folks didn't have the money to
Right.
pay for me to go to the school.
Yeah, that's how mine was. I mean, my dad always had a great income, but 5 kids.
Yeah.
I mean, and my mom stayed at home with us. So, you know, it was always like, hey, if you want a car and you want to drive, well, you got to be able to pay for that gas.
Yeah.
You know, someone's got to. And so, you know, for me, it was like 12, 13 years old, started refereeing soccer. Soon as the city I was in, they allowed us to start working at the grocery store at 14 and a half. So immediately went there because they
Yeah.
let us work. And then, you know, it was always something. And before that, I mean, I was always too young, but my dad had a lawn business. There's pictures of them at like 7 years old with a backpack blower, you know? So we are always taught to work and to take care of ourselves the best we could.
So and you may have not thought about this, and maybe you have, but what's the long range goal?
Yeah, so I would like for Lucas Lawn and Landscape to be, I would say self-ran, meaning that have managers in place that can carry the vision I carry and continue it, that can bid properties, can, you know, handle all of the day-to-day stuff, where I would like to move on to something else. You know, I want to be a pilot, starting another company right now. You know, I'd like to move on to something else, but not move away from,
Sure.
like, keep it, but start something fresh. I get bored, so
Yeah.
I'm just
Most entrepreneurs
yeah. It's not that I'm like unhappy with my business. I'm just it's good. You know, let it be someone else's baby to an extent, and me move on to something else.
do. Right.
So that's where I'm at now.
Yeah, I figure most of the entrepreneurs I know, they actually are running 3 or 4
Yeah.
businesses.
I mean, I've tried several before already, and you know, some fail, and that is what it is. But
Yeah.
keep going till it sticks.
Try again.
Yep.
Well, man, I appreciate the conversation, and I know it's going to inspire others to, you know, give it a shot, you
Yeah.
know, and stay with it, work hard, know your vision. I think what you said was so true. Know what you want, and don't let the critics and the naysayers deter you.
Right.
Go to trusted counsel, trusted friends, and let them speak,
Right.
To you about what you're doing. And so, man, I appreciate the time today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very, very much.
Thanks for having me.
And so, hey, hope you enjoyed this conversation, and maybe you have a dream, maybe you have a desire to start a business, and I would encourage you to take the wisdom that Lucas has shared with us and maybe begin to implement that and see what you can develop and see your dreams come to pass as well. And so until next time, we'll see you again at Beyond the Table.